So for those who are watching the video, we just watched the movie 2:22, as in the time 2:22 in the afternoon. Really, really fucking interesting movie. Well done. Yeah, keeps you guessing all the way through the movie. You're not quite sure who's going to be the good guy, the bad guy, how it's going to play out, or why the patterns. It's all about repeating patterns. And the star of the movie, identifying the patterns and all of a sudden kind of freaking out because he's seeing all these patterns completely repeat every single day leading up to the time 2:22. There was some interesting, for me, there was some interesting pieces in this. The one being that it started with the star going supernova. Because you start talking about physics then, and you start talking about black holes, gravity waves, if such a thing actually exists. It's interesting, just because, like I said, for us, I put it in here when the guy on the news is talking about the supernova in the movie, and I said, okay, wait, just last August, oh, like a year ago, I just realized. They announced that they had identified a supernova, and in doing so had witnessed a gravity wave from this nova coming through. And I joked at the time, saying, well, that's kind of interesting, like the concept of gravity's rainbow, gravity waves, and the fact of a nova, i.e. a black hole, i.e. an event horizon, a wormhole, etc. And then you have kind of like this movie here where he's going through almost like loops, where the day is looping. And it's not Groundhog Day. It's not like where the day for him goes the exact same thing every single day, reliving the same day. It's that every day is carrying the same set of patterns. I just found that really, really interesting, just because we've discussed a lot of these things. How many of us have watched patterns and have witnessed patterns in our own life or around us, watched the loops, and we've discussed that for holy shit, how long? So I don't know. I found this movie really interesting, and I'm going to have to sit down and watch it again because I found there was a lot of subtleties in there. Like I think Chris said it, he says the answers are all in the movie. As you watch the movie, the answers are all actually given to you in the movie, but they're subtle, and you have to kind of watch the pieces. And I think there was some really, really interesting pieces in the commentary that's always going on talking about the supernova. I don't know. What do you guys think? You guys are funny. You guys are all funny. No one has anything they want to add to that? Yeah, like I said, the movie was pretty straightforward. It was enjoyable. It was a lot of fun. I highly recommend anyone to watch it. Does anyone know when that movie came out? That was the question that was asked actually in the chat.
2017.
So a year ago, 2017, eh?
I just looked it up. Yeah, when she asked, I think it was Brianna. Yeah, when she asked it just kind of struck me. So I thought, hold it. I just looked this movie up just hours ago, and I didn't notice the year so much. So I looked it up again. It's like, yeah, 2017 is what it says. Yeah.
2017.
You know, Dawn, Danny, something that Dawn said is germane, I think, to the point about from the movie, but not in the movie. And it has to do with this pattern stuff you're talking about. There's more to patterns than just physical, you know, I eat a sandwich this way instead of that way.
Oh,
or
yeah.
I put my shoes on the same time, the same way every day. There's personal internal habits that we involve ourselves with that we don't even notice. We just, you know, we assume they're us, but they're really freaking patterns that we've fallen into. That's been made so goddamn evidently clear to me over the last couple of years. And I don't have it down pat or anything, but the more I break patterns, the more interesting my life becomes. In a weirdest way, you know, I can't predict anything, and I still got tons and tons of patterns. I know that, we all do. But I've actually tried, when they come to my mind, I say, wait a minute, that's a freaking pattern. I can change that. And when I do, I don't know, my life is just different. In a good way, too, as it turns out, in a positive way, in ways I could never predict.
Mm-hmm.
I just pass that along as a personal, you know, anecdote.
Yeah, maybe that's a little exercise for this week. Exercise for the UnFuckers this week is find one of your patterns and break it. No matter how little or insignificant it may seem, like maybe you always walk to the store this way, maybe for this week we walk to the store in a different way, a different, you know? Yeah, Moksha, we almost always have 33 people in the room, which always cracks me up. We're sitting here with 33 participants right now. Come on, Stephanie, you can break a pattern. I know you can. Yeah, Fred, you've been doing it for the last week with no laptop. That's right, you really broke a pattern. Like when you broke the pattern, you fucking really went all out and really broke it. Quite literally.
Let me tell you a personal story, if you don't mind. And this is this I don't normally do in front of so many people, but I do want to share this one. Something happened when I was out in Arizona with Dawn and the other girls, where I showed something to Dawn that I didn't really realize I was showing. I got really angry at a guy on the train, and she caught me at it, and she wouldn't let me off the hook. She's not even sitting there, so she'll either have to re-listen to this or there it goes. But she called me out on it really big time, and effectively it was, I've been angry all of my life. Subtle, you know, I've always squelched it and worked around it, but there's this internal anger that I've always felt all of my life of unfairness, of whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't show in my external personality very often, but it's there. And she looked at me, honest to God, she looked at me with the hardest eyes I've ever seen anybody look at me. And she said, that's not you. That's a pattern and you can break it. And when she said that, in a split second, I saw the truth of what she was saying. And in that same split second, I dropped it. And it can happen. But that's a deep one. That's not something silly like eating a sandwich the right way, the same way, or putting your shoes on. But you can do that with your own life if you so choose. But you got to see it before you can do it. And I will say that. That's
hard.
That is hard. And thank God, you think I love Dawn. I do. But she is such a bonus to me in ways not always pleasant. But I don't run from her. I don't.
You know what? Interesting. Okay, because let's talk about patterns for a second, and that's it. I mean, we all have patterns. We have, and I think Maury's example is really good, a reaction. Not necessarily, it's not the actions that show the patterns as it is the reactions that we have to a given situation that shows the pattern. I have a lot of those. I know I have a lot of reaction patterns. And thank you, Maury, because that's something for me to think about too. Because maybe instead of the trivial, or maybe we start with the trivial, but looking at the bigger patterns that we have in our reactions, how we react to given situations, and changing it. Funny, I have one of my, I love the quote. And of course, I've just gone on a complete mental blank of who it was who said it. Fuck. The definition of stupidity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. The definition of insanity. Sorry, there you go. The definition, and it was Einstein. Albert Einstein. The definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over and over and expect a different outcome. And I see it in the patterns with my kids. I see it in the patterns with neighbors, with people around us. And maybe that's a really, really good one to take in. Of like, we have to change those patterns. how we react in order to change the outcome. Maybe we need to change those patterns and really look at how we are reacting to certain situations.
As a general overview of that, I can actually offer something here, Danny, I think. You don't need to know the specific one. Just know that you're not your patterns. And in a moment, you can become who you are.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter what you used to be. That's a generalization, I realize. But maybe that's the way to go at it, rather than to say, oh, geez, now what are my patterns, and go down that rabbit hole, which is, you know about rabbit holes like I know about rabbit holes. So maybe it's a broad brush approach and say, wait a minute, the me that I hold to be me, you know, the Danny that presents herself to the world and goes on the internet, in your family and everything. There's patterns imbued in all of that. Yeah. And you do them because they're comfortable, and it's a role that you got used to. Isn't that true? I'm used to you, but I'm speaking for myself, really.
Absolutely. No. It's comfortable because it's a set pattern. You don't have to think. The pattern takes over. You react within that pattern. It doesn't take any effort. It doesn't take any forethought. It doesn't take in some ways, any sense of responsibility, because you are reacting.
You're playing a role.
You're playing a role. And I think that's actually a really good point, Maury. That's actually a really, really good point.
I would even call it part of your comfort zone. If you're not aware of it, if you don't have that awareness, then you're not going to figure it out if you don't have that awareness to realize, I'm in a comfort zone. I don't want to be in this comfort zone.
But we all know we're more than that. We all intrinsically know that we're more than that. If we but step up to the plate and face the fastball coming our way, so to speak, to keep the baseball analogy. But we all can do it if we so choose, but we have to make the decision. We have to make the frickin' decision and say yes. And until you do, it's far easier, like Star just said, and Danny's saying, and I'm saying, and probably everybody else in here, if they look at it, will say the same thing. It's the easy way. It's the fallback. It's a safe zone. And about time we stopped playing safe and started being who the hell we really are.
How about even more so, to use my wonderful, look, there's Brianna hanging from the ceiling again, being responsible. Because the patterns are a step in. Like you say, it's you step into the pattern and it takes over. If we're being truly responsible for ourselves, then we have to be ourselves. In which case, taking responsibility for those reactions, not just allowing the pattern to take over.
That's heavy talk, by the way.
You know what, Maury? I want to thank you. You don't know yet, but you've actually just helped me quite a bit tonight. Thank you. I needed that. I absolutely needed that.
Well, you're welcome. I needed to say it. I didn't know it was coming until it came, but I needed to say that.
No, nope. That was a big help, my darling. Thank you very much. Patterns within patterns within patterns.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately, I've been thinking about that. What you guys are talking about just recently, it's like, it seems to me, I mean, it's kind of old news to us, but I mean, the whole thing that's like, even the fact that it probably seems to go really deep. I don't even like using these words anymore, but the only thing the reference we have still.
That stupid English language crap that we're stuck with.
Yeah.
The funny thing about all this, stars, is in the end, it is personal. You can't look outside and say, oh, they. It's fucking personal, man.
Yeah.
And you got to make it. I have to make it personal in my life, or it's just another mental projection. Mm-hmm. And
wow, yeah,
that's pretty strong too. But it's
mental projection. And okay, Maury, I think what you said is really important. It becomes a mental projection. When you're within the pattern, you project out a response, and in projecting out that response, we are projecting out the response to our response. It becomes a pattern between people as well.
Yeah,
Say something, they say something. You say something, they say something, and it does absolutely, and you project it, and that is really, really excellent. That is thank you. That is actually really, really deep there, Mr. Morey. We project that out. Very, very good. This is going to be a deep conversation. Yeah.
We could. Well, we did pretty good for the last 10 minutes anyway.
Yeah, I know, and I'm sitting here, I'm fading fast. Unlike Wednesday night where I was up until 3 o'clock in the morning when I finally broke up with you guys, and then I was still laid in bed wide awake staring at the ceiling for another 45 minutes. Tonight I'm really tired. It's like the heat has gotten to me tonight. I'm like, seriously, I'm melting. Even the dog is fading over here. Poor doggo is like, I got no energy.
The thing is, people expect certain behaviors and patterns and reactions from us, don't they?
Yes, they do.
And I think, you kind of, you shock people when you act differently. And I think we do it to stay in kind of what we're comfortable with.
A comfort zone.
Yeah, I think it takes a brave moment to do something that you don't usually do. When people go skydiving, they face their fears. That's something different. Yep. Flying, going on a trip, whatever you're scared of, you face it. It's something different. You're going to have a different reaction to a different experience that you've never had before. And I think it's so true. But then you look again and you kind of think, well, these patterns of behavior that we have, we've learned them. It's not really us, is it? We've learned it. This is socially acceptable.
I'm going to go so far as to say not just learned, programmed, in the fact of we learn it or programmed into it from our parents.
Yeah.
We take on those attributes. I mean, how many of us here have opened our mouth to say something to our kids and heard your mother's voice come out of your face and gone, oh my fucking God, I just channeled my mother.
That's the herd or the matrix or the program. All three apply to the same thing that you're talking about, both of you ladies.
And also school, what they do in school, you get programmed because you're programmed to give a set response. I mean, the education system sets you up for that. You got to raise your hand. Teacher asks a question, you raise your hand, and then you have to give the rote response that is expected of you according to the textbook, the notebook, the lesson that's been in front of you. And then it continues in work. The same thing. You have an accepted formats that are given out in work, right? Politics, everything around is to set patterns. And set patterns in what is socially acceptable and what's not socially acceptable in every given situation. But the patterns, the deeper patterns beyond that, like the patterns that we've absorbed and I think as children, the patterns that we've gotten, from our parents, from our upbringing, that has been suffocatingly put over top of you. And it's the same thing because, Maury, I can say the same thing. I have a lot of anger. I have a lot of anger. It comes out all the time. I'm a very angry person, a lot of it. And I'm very reactionary that way. Things can trigger me and I just blow up. Now, most of it's funneled into human rights, and it's funneled into, you funnel that anger into animal rights, human rights, the good things that you're supposed to be angry and upset over. And a lot of that I can look back and I can say, like, I can see things in my childhood that are like, okay, these are some of the cornerstone pieces of why I am so angry. So, yeah, and they set those patterns. I think it's very interesting if we talk about the fact of the patterns and the way they come back and the way people interact with us. And they have expectations, and I think that's a really good word, Tracy. People have expectations. assumptions. And Nick's famous one is like, do you know what it is to assume? You assume, you make an ass of you and me, right? Because if you assume anything, you're putting your assumptions on someone else. That's not theirs. If you make an assumption, it's your own bloody fault, right? And yet we do that all the time in the way we interact with people. We have an assumption of how something comes up. You say something, you assume how that person is going to react. And in some ways, I think maybe we then project it. We project it and in a way trigger their programming, trigger their patterns that almost in a way, I hate to say it, but kind of forces them to respond back in the same programming that they've got. In their own patterns, they're going to respond the same way.
That is so funny though, when you think, that is really just come to my mind. When you, on the flip side of that, when you're talking about, you know, you just challenge your mother. Probably last week, I said to my 16-year-old child, messy as hell. And I said, it's not like I haven't taught you to be tidy. It's not like I haven't brought you up for 16 years. And the kind of reaction, you know, that you have to their mess, and they're kind of like, I know exactly what response I'm going to get. It's just going to be, you know, this is me. And we kind of get offended, you know, that not this way.
But I taught you how to do the damn dishes. I taught you how to get your plate off the table. What the hell? Yep.
We're trying to put our programming, our ideas onto them. And I've just kind of thought, well, why are we doing that? They're their own person. And she'll say, I'm arty, I'm artistic, we have to live in a mess. And I'm like, no, you fucking don't.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a fine line in that too, right? I mean, this is what I say to my kids. Like, I afford my kids a lot of freedoms, and I let them kind of do as they will, which is why I'm an unschooling parent, right? Like, we don't do lesson plans, very, very rarely. I let them experience and learn through their own way. But there's certain things, for example, as in, you know, like everyone helping out. Everyone helps out in the house, and everyone has to help out in the house because that's we're all living in the house, and you can't neglect one job. For example, with my girls, and I'll say to them, if you don't walk the dog because you don't feel like it, who's paying the price? The dog is. So therefore, you have certain responsibilities, and there's that fine line though between, you know, kind of like the responsibilities that we have in life and teaching our kids about that versus that whole, and I witnessed it this weekend, really, really. There was a family visiting here, and I met them through friends of ours. And their child, like this little boy, I was like, oh my, I said to my friends after they left, of like, oh my God, that child is either going to grow up and be a complete sociopath because of what he's been through. Like, and the mother is so controlling every little thing, like as to his clothing, as to how he has to act, what he can do, what he can't do. Every moment is completely 100% controlled in this poor child. And I was just like, wow. And there's the other extremity of it, right? The other extremity.
Yeah, I hate those controlling types. It's like, it's like back. Yeah.
And Dawn, darling,
I'm back.
you're going to have to review. You'll have to watch the video of this because we've just had a really major conversation, and you were part of the conversation, brought into the conversation. So you will have to go and listen to the video when I put it out tomorrow.
Okay.
I did it to you. I did it to you, Dawn.
Yeah, it's all Maury's fault. We're all going to blame
right now, so just know it ahead.
All right.
I'm going to have to let you guys go. I am really, really exhausted tonight. Wednesday night will be the UnFucker discussion. And we're going to be getting into, well, again, I think more science stuff. And I think we're going to get into this whole discussion about the moon. As we were discussing before the movie, I think we're going to have to get into this discussion about the moon. The sun as well, but the moon, there's so much fucking shit there. So keep that in your mind, kind of the stuff that we sort of touched on a little bit last Wednesday. Let's bring it into the conversation this Wednesday because I have this it's really resonating with me, like this is one of our pieces here that we need to look at. And then I'll have to put up the poll for next week's movie because I have no idea what movie we'll watch next week. So I'll put a new poll up tomorrow morning, and we'll see what movie we're going to watch next Sunday.
And I was just thinking real quick, it would be kind of funny to see how many people would notice if there was no moon for X amount of days, like for say several days, how many people would actually notice that?
Stop looking at their phone and actually look up for a second. Yeah. Well, it's really funny because, of course, when we had the blood moon here, and I was in one of the prime locations to really be able to see it, it was like the best time of night. It had it was like right at between 9 and 11 at night where you really saw it the best. So it's dark out, etc. And it was a Friday night, so Marcelform, where we are, the whole seafront was full of tourists and families and tons of people. And where we always have our little table set up for selling our stuff, we had to just kind of walk over the little bridge, like we're talking maybe 75 meters away, tops, to just be able to stand where you could see between the buildings and really watch the moon and watch the eclipse coming over the moon. And it amazed me how many people didn't even know. No one. And it wasn't to our whole crew, because we had a bunch of friends down there with us. The kids kept running over to that place and going and watching, and very obviously watching, and pointing, etc. And all of a sudden, you get people who are like, they see others looking up, doing and making a big deal of it, and they all go look up and they go, oh, look. And I ended up telling, I don't know how many times I had to explain to people what was going on, like 15 times over the night. People would be like, what is going on? I'd be like, it's a full blood moon eclipse. And like, you're sitting in the middle of it, like at one of the most perfect places on the planet to actually be watching it. Oh, okay, I'm going to take a photo. But yeah, no notice of it. Like, I don't know how you could bloody miss it. The thing was freaking huge. It was bright orange. You can't really miss the moon when it's bright orange, but apparently people did because they don't look up. Which is, this is the whole thing. When the moon is all over the place, that we notice it because we're all looking at the moon. We all watch it. So when the moon rises like from the complete fucking wrong side of the planet, we all go, did anyone happen to notice the moon rising from I don't know, north?
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck? Yeah.
And no one else is talking about it. And I don't know how, literally, it's been boggling my mind for 2 years, how it is that no one can talk about the fact that the moon is drunk. Completely fucking drunk.
I mean, the average person, when you say it, they're like, what? I mean, they're just so...
Yeah, there's no words, John. I know.
They're asleep, Dawn. They're asleep.
Yeah, the tunnel vision is horrendous. Yeah.
Tunnel vision right to their phone.
And that is something so simple in the big scheme of things that, you're like, okay, these people, when something happens, they're going to shit.
Well,
they're going to shit.
I hate to say it, and I'm going to get into it and say this. Someone posted, no, it wasn't in UnFuckers. It was actually came through on my news feed on Facebook, and it was a write-up by a guy from Bosnia. And he did a write-up saying, people need to understand what it's like when the shit hits the fan. I lived in a place where the shit hit the fan, and our town was under a complete lockdown for an entire year during the war. And he talked about the fact there was no food, there was no gas, there was no electricity, there was no water, there was no medicine, there was no hospitals, there was no anything. And his experience was really, really interesting. And the comments that came in underneath it were interesting because you had other people from other areas like that saying, oh, I know what you're talking about. And he's saying about the fact he was like, his family is now completely prepared. Even though that was like in the 90s, he says, my family's prepared. We have guns, we have ammo, we have stocks of food, we have stocks of things that you can use for trading. And he said, like lighters. You don't realize how valuable a lighter is until no one has one. And he said, I've got thousands of lighters. I have got all these things saved up. He says, because I've been there before, and I get it. And that's one of the things I've always said, kind of like, when if and when, and I'm sure it's more like when at this point, the shit hits the fan, how many people are actually going to be even remotely prepared?
Let me throw something out here on that one, Danny. There's a military story that they tell all the time. Most of the generals from the previous war are still in power when the next war comes along, and they go into the new war fighting with the tactics of the old war.
Yep.
And they invariably get defeated.
Yep.
There's a message in that about previous experience in terms of when the shit hits the fan. I think this time around, this is me talking again personally, I think this time around the old tactics, although partially helpful, useful, are not going to be what's really going to be required. And I think an open mind, the old patterns we were just talking about.
Absolutely.
We must be open to new possibilities. And the new possibilities arrive in the moment. They don't arrive from the past.
Absolutely.
That's
absolutely.
You got to have done the work on yourself to where when these moments arrive, you're not so freaked. You know, it's not that. Even if some shit happened here for a moment, I'm going to feel a little weird about it, but I'm going to snap into courage quick, you know, but at least
you do what you have to do.
It's the thing, you know.
And that's what I'm talking about, more like the mental. It's not just the physical, but it's the mental preparation. It's really, really funny. Just before we had the movie, the family and I were watching Jurassic World, which is the new Jurassic Park movie. And my kids and I, they're terrible because they rant at movies because I rant at movies. And it's like, you know, why is whenever there's ever a problem and you're being chased, why do people run to the roof? Seriously, are you fucking stupid? Why the fuck do you run to the roof if you're being chased? Or something big happens and everyone freezes and stops and watches it. And I'm like, why are you not running? Seriously? You just keep running. You don't stop and do a big montage to watch what's going on. You just keep running. You don't freeze, etc. Yeah, and take pictures. Exactly, Deb. They stop and take a picture. It's a Kodak moment. I gotta take a picture of this big dinosaur running at my head. You know what I mean? But that is the mental preparation too, and that's kind of like what what Dawn's saying is when you do the inner work. People who are clueless are not prepared mentally and emotionally. And that emotional thing is there's this the shattering. And how many people?
Yeah, all the fears they have are going to come up all at one time because they haven't dealt with their shit, and it's going to be a problem. I'm going to tell you.
Yep. And I had friends in New Orleans. I know they were luckily during Katrina they were on the outskirts. And the shock, they're pretty hardcore. So they were like, okay, get down, dig into it, and you start doing what you have to do to help everyone out. But all their neighbors were in this state of, but no one's helping us. But look, where's the rescue? Where's FEMA? Where's the military? And because they have this perception that if anything was to happen, this agency over here, or this one, or this one, or this one, or this one, would come in and swoop in and rescue them. Thereby, when that doesn't happen that way, all of a sudden they're just sitting there sucking their thumb going, I got nothing. I have no idea what to do. And that's that. Your world shatters. Your reality shatters around you, right?
This is what really hit me when I watched Extinction. I didn't watch it with everybody. My first thought was, shit, what would you actually do obviously that's an extreme scenario, but what would you do in that kind of scenario where your world is just falling apart? Would you be prepared? Are we prepared now? How are you going to react? Where are you going to go? And so me being me, there was me on YouTube watching videos about preppers for the end of the world. You know, I was like, I need to get my shit together.
Listen, like I said, I've been a prepper for 20 years. Not the kind of hardcore that has frickin', crates of ammo in my basement. Not that kind of prepper. But for example, it's prepared with knowledge. You know what I mean? You learn things, you have knowledge that you can apply. How to deal with first aid stuff, how to grow your own plants, how to grow your own food, how to do those kind of things that in any walk of life, in any point in time, these things can come in handy. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a global, horrifying disaster. It could be there's a flood and everything gets flooded out. And guess what? We live on a little tiny island. So if there's a huge flood and the power goes down, that means that the water processing plant goes down. well, then it means that all of a sudden you've got to be creative, because now you've got, all these people who are all trying to figure out how they're going to get fresh water, or how they're going to deal with whatever the issue is. The gas tanks don't come over from Malta, so all of a sudden people are running out of gas. These are the kinds of things. But there's a preparation in that, in the knowledge of just being self-aware and being aware of what's the word I want to use? Being confident in yourself, right? Being confident, having that confidence, like, should something come up, like I say, I don't have 20 kilograms of dried beans in my basement, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, I do have 20 kilograms of flaxseed. So if there's ever an emergency, I got 20 kilos of flaxseed. Actually, I think it's 45 kilos, to tell you the truth. So I got lots of flaxseed here for everyone.
I have lots of toilet roll. I always say that's going to be a bargaining tool. Come the zombie apocalypse, toilet roll is going to be a bargaining tool.
You know it will.
Yeah.
You know it will.
Oh yeah, listen. Like I said, it's the little things, like lighters and toilet paper and things like that.
Especially.
Luckily, I know how to make that shit, so I'm really not concerned about toilet paper or lighters. So,
Yeah, but mine's triple quilted.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Anytime you live in any place, I always laugh at the shit that disappears off when there's like, they say like fucking Anne isn't here tonight, when they had the big hurricane was going to hit Ireland, and Ireland ran out of bread, and she was like, there was no bread for 3 days in Ireland, and she was like, oh my God, you'd think it was the end of the fucking world because there was no bread on the shelves in the stores. And she was like, what, is nobody remember how to make bread? Flour, water, yeast, bit of sugar, done. Like, seriously. And that's what we always joke about. What's this stuff that disappears? And we had a friend of mine, it was really, really funny. They had a huge blackout. It was Northern Ontario. I'm trying to think. It wasn't during, Nancy, it wasn't during the 2003 blackout in Ontario. I remember that one. That one was actually, it was an interesting time, that. She was just a baby at the time. No, it was a few years after that, and there was something that happened. There was a big storm, there was a big blackout, and he was like, right, I'm going to go make sure I stock up. And I can't remember what he was going to stock up on. It was something that he was like, the one thing I'm lacking is lighter fluid. Do you know what I mean? Something ridiculous like that. Charcoal briquettes for the barbecue. And he walked into the local grocery store, which was relatively small, and the aisles that were empty was the junk food aisle and the bread aisle. He's like, so I don't know. Apparently everyone's going to be having chips on bread. That's what they plan on surviving, for this blackout for 2 or 3 days. Chips and bread.
I mean, think about that for a second. I mean, like, okay, this is a good example. I just go meet a patient up the street. So we pull in the gas station, and it's an older couple, and they say, Dawn, there's a police officer over there. You see him? And I'm standing. I go, yeah. And they're just looking at me, and I go, so? I said, you got to own your game. Okay? Our game is not involved in that kind of energy.
You're not dealing heroin? No.
Well, it's just the point that you can't let fear into your space.
Yeah.
The minute you open that door, you know what I mean? So, it's so important. It's so important, I think. Just,
yeah.
We've got to do that. And, as far as, being a prepper, I'm also okay with the fact that if I never use it, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
See, I'm not, I figure that I'm high enough in my energetics that whatever goes down, I'll be protected somehow. I believe that. And it's part of who I am. So, chances are I may not need it, but that's okay. Because I know my dumbass sisters will. Right?
That's that interior work that she talks about all the time.
Not the smallest, smartest tools in the shed, man.
I'm laughing, Dawn, because I had literally, at one point in Toronto, I had, I don't know, about 5 kilos of lentils, and I fucking can't stand lentils. Like, I hate lentils. And one of my girlfriends said, so why do you have all these lentils? I said, because I'm going to have to feed people. So I'm fine. If I have to feed the neighbors, they're all eating fucking lentils. Just because, seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Dawn, if you don't use it, you can leave everything in the will. And I have 20 jars of chili made. I have 20 jars of salsa. I have 50 kilos of flour in the basement.
I wish I did. All my baking stuff is at the lowest of the low. I've got nothing in the house at the moment.
See, I've got to keep like lots of dog food and cat food, y'all. I mean,
You need kilos upon kilos upon kilos of dog and cat food.
I got more dog and cat food than I have. Well, no, that's not true. I mean, I got a lot of food, but
when we had all of this snow here in the UK in the winter, I could not believe it. Cat litter had disappeared off the shelves, and it took like 2 weeks for it to come back in. I was like, "Are you kidding me? My cats are indoor cats. They need their cat litter. Where are they going to shit?"
That's the problem. That's the problem.
Cat litter.
The things you don't expect. Well, that's the cat equivalent of toilet paper, right? Right?
True.
It's for cat
So
owners.
seriously, what I did,
toilet paper. Kitty litter.
What I did 2 weeks ago, I got a great big bin and I bought 10 kilos of cat litter and I filled that bin with fucking cat litter. Now they're prepared. Probably better than I am.
You know, the worst thing, the thing is, I do the same thing, but, if I ran out of cat litter, I'd be out there digging up earth. I'd be digging up the dirt. Shit,
That's exactly what, listen, in Morocco, all the cats that we've adopted and things like that, they just use sand. Used to send the kids out to the beach, go get the sand in a bucket, and they'd bring it in, dump it in the box. Yep.
You have to improvise. It'll stink, but,
Exactly.
it is what it is.
20 kilos of baking soda to mix it so that it doesn't stink. A little diatomaceous earth goes a long way in that situation.
Yeah, it definitely comes in handy for like a sit-in and UnFucker Facebook. It's like, or like they just missed the litter box to get all over the edge of it. It's like, you little shit, you're lucky I love you, because, I hate cleaning the sides off. And it just...
I know. My new little kitten, I can hear him on the inside doing that whole shimmy thing on the side of the litter box.
Mm-hmm.
He's all into it.
My old Tomcat was extremely fastidious. After he used the litter box, he would go all the way around the edge and knock all the litter back into the litter box. So if anyone and then when we rescued Angus, who was a Siamese, an indoor cat Siamese who'd been left outside and almost froze to death. When we rescued him, he used to get in and use the litter box and be fucking shit and litter everywhere. And my big Tomcat Loud would come in behind him and it'd be like, sweep it all away, clean it all up again.
They will. And my
friend Hardy, those two, I swear to God.
My friend has 2 dogs, and she's got piddle pads, by the door because they're older. And she's got a big old friggin' Siamese, but like long hair, and he'll walk by there and get all pissed off and try to cover up everything, covering up with the pad. I mean, it's like a giant ball when she walks in the door. His size covers it all up. He's like,
yes. My cat was OCD kitty. Yes, he was definitely OCD kitty when it came to the litter box. It was crazy. Anyways, guys, I gotta go. I'm exhausted. I'm gonna fall over. Star, I've already made you host, so you can take over. And I love you guys. I will see you Wednesday night.